On behalf of VMUG, I'd like to welcome you to today's webcast, Modern Data Protection for Dynamic VMware Environments, presented by Shamali Deshpande and Mrinal Shankar of Veritas. Thank you for participating in today's webcast and for your continued support in the Global VMUG program. Before we begin, I have 3 quick housekeeping items to go over. First, today's webcast will be recorded and available for on-demand. You'll receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast, so be looking out for that. Second, a Q&A session will follow today's presentation. All questions will need to be entered in the question window near the bottom of your GoToWebinar screen. Third, there will be a short online evaluation that pops up as you exit the webcast. Please make sure to take a minute and let us know what you thought of today's session and what you might like to see going forward. One attendee from today's webcast will win a $100 Amazon gift card, and Veritas will email the winner directly following today's webcast. So good luck. All right, let's get started. I would like to introduce you to today's presenters, Shamali Deshpande, Senior Product Marketing Manager, and Mrinal Shankar, Senior Product Manager at Veritas. Shamali, I would like to turn things over to you.
Thank you, Annie. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. So we're going to be talking about what it means to modernize data protection for your VMware environments. And we'll also be showing you a real look at the latest NetBackup and give you a demo into VMware-focused features. So here are the things that Veritas has been seeing. So we've been in the storage industry. We're a leader in the storage industry and the data management industry for a couple of decades now. And most of our customers are at the larger end of IT. So we get consistent feedback from them about the challenges they face and also the changes that are driving their business. So analytics is one of the biggest areas of investment, but not just inside IT. It's also driving other parts of the business like sales and marketing. The organizations are just trying to understand how they can monetize their data. DevOps, of course, is a huge trend within IT to help make IT organizations more agile and develop continuous innovation to ultimately bring better services to end customers. Virtualization, of course, the focus of this webcast, is a long-standing trend. And you can also argue that containers is another form of virtualization or containerization of applications. Cloud is another big trend similar to virtualization that has kind of taken over the market the last few years. And you have many businesses adopting open source as well, like using technologies like MySQL as well as Postgres. And then self-support is a big need in the enterprise, especially with distributed teams, as well as continuity or resiliency within the enterprise. So, a lot of these topics are driving IT transformation, and I'm sure all of you are seeing these trends within your own organizations. The point I'd like to make on this slide is, we're getting this consistent feedback from our customers, and these are challenges that are, being seen across the data centers. And this is how we prioritize roadmaps and technology investments at Veritas. So ESG, or the Enterprise Strategy Group, in a recent survey asked over about 300 organizations about the challenges they face when it comes to data protection. So as we see the data here, cost is usually at the top year after year. But I also want to look at some of the other challenges. And managing virtualization is a big challenge for customers and organizations, especially on public clouds and within a virtual environment. Managing multiple data protection solutions is also on here. And also managing large quantities of secondary and tertiary copies of data. So a lot of these challenges aren't necessarily new. I'm sure all of you are familiar with some of them, right? But we can see how they stack up relative to each other. So with all of this external data, what is our perspective? What is the Veritas perspective on how we recommend you modernize data protection for 2019? So I'd like to summarize these across, 6 different strategies. First of all, you want to standardize on fewer cross-platform solutions. What this is going to do is it's going to help you become more operationally efficient. Secondly, you want to be able to simplify and federate administration. So instead of having all of your administration centralized and then, possibly having a bottleneck, you want to be able to federate it and provide a level of self-service to different admins across your IT environment. And you also want to be able to blend on-premises and cloud. So you're not managing, disparate environments using different tools and processes, creating like a fragmented environment. And you want to automate as much as possible. So automation is now entering a new phase, with APIs in the picture across many IT environments. And there's a lot that can be done to actually take that automation and orchestration to the next level. And then you want to basically contain costs as well, right? And a way to do this is to utilize low maintenance infrastructures. So let's start with Veritas' solution for data protection, which is Veritas Net Backup. If you aren't familiar with NetBackup, it's been the #1 market share leader for over 2 decades, and it really is the gold standard for enterprise data protection. And it's not just backup and recovery. So what we like to say is we like to describe NetBackup as a data management platform. So in addition to protecting your data, you can also use it for data visibility, for resiliency or business continuity, copy data management, as well as disaster recovery. And because we support virtually every data type that you have, you can actually eliminate point solutions and standardize on a unified platform. So I also want to mention here that NetBackup has a very strong reputation for high performance and scalability within the enterprise. So like I mentioned earlier, most of our customers are at the larger end of IT, the enterprise and large enterprise organizations. And scalability and performance are, 2 of the key factors why they choose NetBackup. And then we also have self-service or as-a-service capabilities or as-a-service management to allow you to provide self-service experience to users or admins who have very specific needs across the environment. So there's a number of capabilities that we modernized in NetBackup recently. In fact, we had a release last October, which is NetBackup 8.1.2, where we introduced a new user interface for NetBackup. And we'll demo this to you shortly. The 3 design philosophies that we used to modernize the user interface was, we made it simple, we made it intuitive, and we made it integrated. We have intelligent policies, which is a way to automate to a high degree. So for example, you can actually automatically discover and protect, VMs in your environment. And we've also continued to enhance our REST APIs to take that automation to the next level. We provide something called instant recovery. This is a feature that we've enhanced with what we call instant access. So this actually gives you the ability to mount a VM directly off of backup storage and provide self-service access directly to this VM without having to actually move it to a VM host. Accelerator is another feature, and it's a way to essentially eliminate full backups. So once you implement Accelerator, you're going to be in an incremental forever mode. But because of post-processing to synthesize a full backup image based on previous backups, there's really no trade-off in terms of recovery times. Dedupe is a mandatory requirement across data protection. So we have intelligent deduplication within NetBackup, and we offer both fixed as well as variable length dedupe. And we also provide both server and client-side dedupe. So, we give you the choice of deduping at the source where the data lives or at the backup server level. So this again, depends on whether you want to remove any impact on the CPU at the source, or you want, you have like low bandwidth network, so you want to do it at, depending where you want to do it, whether the source or the client. Starting in 2010, we also introduced a line of backup appliances. So in addition to NetBackup software, which customers use to build their own, you can also choose our integrated appliances. And specific to VMware, operating without agents is a huge benefit on a day-to-day basis. So I talked earlier about having an option for low maintenance infrastructure as a way to cut costs. So, having agentless operation is a big part of this. And with the latest release of NetBackup, you can operate agentlessly within the VMware space. And from a cloud integration perspective, we offer over 60 different cloud storage targets, including, the cloud leaders like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. So a little more detail into protecting VMware with NetBackup. I mentioned we are agentless now in the latest release. So we offer agentless backup at the VM host level. We also offer granular restores. You can instantly recover by booting up from backup storage, and also automatically discover and protect new VMs through our intelligent policies. And then finally, for self-service capabilities, we offer plugins both for VMware vCenter as well as VMware vRealize. We've been partnering with VMware for a long time. In fact, we have 11 years of partnership with VMware, and 12 major releases for NetBackup that are focused on, improving VMware features and capabilities. We have over 30 plus features that are focused on VMware, and in fact, we recently got certified on vSAN as well as vCloud environments. We won Best of VMworld 4 times, and we place a high priority of delivering rapid support or day one support for new versions of VMware. So I want to talk a little bit about what makes NetBackup so special. So, as we say in the airline industry, we know that you have a choice of backup vendors. So why choose NetBackup? So NetBackup really is more than just backup. It provides a platform, a unified platform for data management, and provides better scalability and performance than anything else out there. And we also have flexible deployment options, as I mentioned. So, you can choose our software version or appliance form factors. It's also easy to get a cloud. So, so many organizations are moving to hybrid and multi-cloud environments. So we have over 60 plus cloud connectors that are available for you to, accelerate transition to the cloud. And we also give you complete visibility into all the data within your environment. And, this is really important because being able to know what data you have and where this data is the first step in being able to manage this data better. And finally, we also offer true availability, not just backup, but true availability that combines backup with complex disaster recovery or resiliency capabilities. So one of the key ways that we help organizations drive down cost of maintenance is through our appliance offerings. And we call them integrated appliances. And what this really means is that these appliances aren't just dedicated storage. You can actually host your backup application or backup server on the appliance in addition to data storage. So on the left side of the slide, we have our traditional appliances, the 5340, 5240, and Cloud Catalyst. And on the right side, you can see our latest technology. So the Flex appliance is something that we recently released last year. And what we've done is we've used Docker containers to host the different components, so the media server, the master server, and the cloud gateway on a single appliance. So this is going to be the way forward for Veritas, containerizing our appliances. So customers are able to get a single integrated appliance platform as opposed to having to deploy multiple units. And we also have a long-term retention appliance, Veritas Access, which can be used as a tape replacement if you're looking to move off of tape. And you can also use it to tier data to the cloud. Finally, I do want to also call out our NetBackup virtual appliances, which actually give you a way to leverage your existing VMware investments and infrastructure without having to deploy a physical system. So this would significantly simplify your deployment and minimize your CapEx investments. So one of the problems of using multiple products for data protection is that you could get hit in terms of operational efficiency, reliability, and performance. So there's a lot of examples of companies that have made a switch from multiple products to NetBackup because of this, exactly this. So in this particular customer story, IDEX Labs achieved a huge boost in performance and backup success rate. There's a number of similar stories that you can read on our website showcasing benefits and ROI when switching to NetBackup. But for IDEX, concerned with low backup performance, concerned with unreliable recoveries, concerned with excessive use of expensive primary storage, they started an initiative to consolidate onto NetBackup from various other multiple data protection point tools. A quick side to tell you about Veritas if you aren't familiar with us. So Veritas is more than just a data protection company. And we provide what we call a 360 portfolio for data management. So this includes data visibility, digital compliance, including helping you prepare for GDPR, data and workload portability, business continuity, and also storage management or software-defined storage. So our leadership in the backup space goes back to the late 90s. And in fact, we've been a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for many, many years. And most of our customers are, customers from the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. So a lot of customers don't use us just for data protection, but they also use us for data management, including a lot of these other use cases that I just talked about. So I'm going to hand over to Mrinal now for a real live demo into the latest version of NetBackup 8.1.2, and we'll take a look at some cool new VMware features that are in the product.
Thank you, Shamli. Can you make me the presenter?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's have some fun with a real life setup and see what's available for you as a VMware administrator in terms of data protection for VMware. So here's a look at our newly introduced web user interface, which was released in September of 2018. And I've begun with the dashboard. But what we're going to walk through is really starting out with a blank slate, which has no VMs being protected. And I'll show you how easy it is to protect virtual machines in multiple ways, and also take a look at the different recovery options available. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've logged in as a backup administrator. And when I click on the VMware tab on the left nav, you can see that I have no virtual machines that are listed over here. And we're going to walk through how easy it is to discover all of your virtual farm and protect them. So before I begin, let's take the use case where I, as a backup administrator, don't want to do these operations on my own. I want to delegate this out to maybe a different backup administrator or a VMware administrator. So through our role-based access control, we can delegate out these operations to different personas. And before I create an access rule for this VM admin, I want to show you what we have as roles. So by default, NetBackup provides 3 CAN roles, which are a backup administrator, a security administrator, and a workload administrator. For the purpose of this demo today, I went ahead and customized the properties of a workload administrator and tailored it to a VMware persona. So if I click on the VMware admin, you can take a look at the different permissions I've given for this particular role. So in terms of recovery, this persona can download files, he can restore files, he has an option to do instant access, and he can also overwrite virtual machines if he has been granted that permission. In this case, I've given it. And what's key over here is the asset management, where I've given him permission to manage application servers and asset groups. Application servers in the context of VMware are your vCenter servers or your ESX servers that you want to be able to discover virtual machines from and back them up. So that was what that VMware admin role contained. And let's go ahead and create an access rule for this user. So I go ahead and click on add. And the user I have for this demo is Joe Smith. Let's validate this user. Yes, he exists. And I'm going to give him the VMware admin role and grant him access to all the objects for VMware. Now, for this demo, I've granted him access to all objects, but through the object groups tab over here, you have the flexibility to grant control only to a subset of virtual machines for this particular user. So I'll hit save. And as you can see, I have now created a rule for Joe Smith. He's a VMware admin with access to all objects. I'm going to log out now as the backup administrator, and I'm going to log in as Joe Smith. So once I've logged in as this VMware admin, you can see that the left nav is reduced significantly in terms of the options. And that's because a lot of the options we were looking at earlier were applicable to that backup admin and not necessarily pertinent to the VMware persona. So now with this clean view over here, let's see how he would go about protecting his virtual machines. So I'll first click on the servers tab, and there are no servers configured. So let's click add. And I have 3 options over here. I can decide to configure a vCenter server, an ESX, or a restore ESX server. So I'm going to add a vCenter server. And let me get the username. I have saved that, kept it handy. And I hit save. So now that I've added credentials for this vCenter server, I'm going to flip back to the virtual machines tab, and what NetBackup is going to do now, it's automatically going to start discovering assets on that vCenter server. So if I hit refresh, you should see those virtual machines start to show up. And there you go. So what's happening is on the back end, our data protection product is reaching out to the vCenter that you've configured, fetching all the asset metadata information, and giving you a single pane of glass into all of your assets. Now, if these assets were already being protected by NetBackup, they would show up with the policy name over here. In this case, I started with a clean setup, so they're not being protected. And the next step I'm going to show you is how do I protect these virtual machines. So it's as easy as clicking on a single virtual machine, and you can see the action on top. It says configure protection. When I click on that, I'm presented with protection plans that have been created by the backup admin and delegated out to the VMware admin. So I have three options. I can pick and choose which one is the most applicable for me. If this was a production virtual machine, maybe I would want to pick a tier 1 protection plan, which does a backup every day. It keeps that backup for 1 week, and it also does a weekly backup, which is retained for 1 month. And in addition to that, it does a monthly backup, which is retained for 1 year. So you can look at the different properties of the protection plans, pick which one is most applicable. For this demo, I'm going to select VMware Tier 1 plan and hit Protect. And you can see we're configuring the protection in the back end, and that is complete now. So I'm going to hit Close. And when we go back to the Virtual Machines tab, you can see this virtual machine is being protected by the VMware Tier 1 protection plan. Now, you can imagine that, for a dynamic environment such as VMware, you wouldn't want to protect virtual machines on an individual basis. You probably want to create a rule-based filter, and new machines that get created that match that filter are also protected. So we enable that through the VMware intelligent groups. And I'll show you how a user would configure an intelligent group and protect it. So I already have a couple of groups over here. Let's just go ahead and delete them and start fresh. So I'm going to create a fictitious group called the Tiny group, which is going to be virtual machines that have a display name called Tiny. So I give a name for the group, and then I select which vCenter or ESX they're from. So I'm going to select the one that I'd configured earlier. And we have an option to include all the virtual machines in this server, or if you want to be more granular, you can start adding conditions. And I'm going to say display name contains the word Tiny. And I can preview what this query is going to return back. And this is returning back 6 virtual machines at this point. And in the future, if any new machines are created with this display name, they would match this criteria. And I hit save. And now you can see this intelligent group has been created called Tiny Group. And instead of protecting virtual machines on an individual basis, I can just select on the intelligent group and hit configure protection. And the workflow now is the same as it was for an individual VM. You are given a view of the available protection plans that your backup administrator had created. You can pick any of them. So I'm going to pick tier 2 for these machines and hit protect. And the policies on the backend have been created. And now all of the machines that match this criteria are going to be protected. Let's hit close and go to the virtual machines tab. And you can see now machines that match this name, like clone Tiny Linux, are being protected by the tier 2 protection plan, and the machines over here as well. So that was a highlight of how NetBackup automatically discovers all your assets. It gives you a single pane of glass into all of those assets and correlates it to the protection status. So machines that are being protected are shown. The ones that are not protected are clearly marked, and you can make a data-driven decision into, if you really want to protect the other machines or not. It's available for you to decide. And once the backup schedules for these protection plans run, this column over here would show the last backup status. So it would show you when the backup was attempted and what the status of that backup was. I'm going to flip over to a different machine, and this one was, it's a little bit more configured and been running for a few days. And this one shows you what I was talking about in terms of the last backup status. So you can see the backups ran today at 8 in the morning. All of them were successful, and these are being backed up by a classic policy, and these ones are not being protected. So I'm going to now show us how, the use case where maybe there's a corruption, or maybe you want to do some test dev on a machine. How do you recover the virtual machines? So let's start by searching for a machine. So I have a machine that starts with the name likai_dev, and likai_dev is being protected by a classic policy, and it's being successfully backed up. So let's look at how we would recover from this virtual, from some scenario that needed a recovery. So I click on that virtual machine, and there are three tabs, the protection tab, the recovery points, and restore activity. The recovery points gives you an easy to navigate calendar-based view where you can select a particular point in time from which you want to recover from. So I'm going to take Feb 13th, and the backup was taken at 8 o'clock. Let's take a look at the options. I can recover this virtual machine either to the original location or to an alternate location. And these are the traditional recovery methods that, you select a few parameters, and we would do a data transfer from the NetBackup storage server back into a data store into vCenter, and then boot up that virtual machine. But what we've added new is the instant access for virtual machines, and let's take a look at that. What this is going to do is it's going to instantly mount up this virtual machine from the backup copy and create an NFS share into your vCenter and boot up the VM from our storage copy. So there's no data transfer involved over here, and it's near instantaneous. You can bring back virtual machines that are of really large sizes in a fixed linear amount of time. So let's take a look at this. This is really simple. You just need to specify a display name. Let's say VMware, and I'm going to put it back on the same ESX server it was on. Just pretty much go with all the defaults and just say power on after provisioning. This looks good. And there's a summary screen over here of where the virtual machine is going to go, and hit create. So now what's happening is a snapshot is created on the back end, and an NFS share is being exported. You can see this one is in progress, and let's hit refresh. This should come up pretty much in a few seconds. And now this virtual machine is active, and this virtual machine was about 100 gigs in size, and you saw that I was able to recover it in just a few seconds. So let's just flip over to vCenter, and let's look for this virtual machine, dev1_vmogrocks. Here it is, and let's take a look at it. This is a summary. It was about 80 GB, close to 100, and it's been booted up. Now, what you can do is you can take a look at the machine, look for the files that were of interest to you, and if everything looks okay and you want to promote this into a production virtual machine, you could do a storage vMotion of this, and that's when the data transfer would come in, and it would come back to a data store on your ESX or ESX server, right? Now, the other recovery scenario that I wanted to show is restoring an individual file. So let's again go back to this machine, Likai dev1, go to the recovery points, and again, the same image of Feb 13th. It's the last option in the dropdown, which is to browse files for single file recovery. And here the use case is I don't want to bring back the entire virtual machine, but I just want to get back a few files from it. And so when I hit on that, we again mounting the copy of this virtual machine on the NetBackup storage server side, and then we're going to present a file and folder view to the user. He can select any file he wants, and once he's found the file that he's interested in, he has two options. He can download the file to his laptop or machine that he's logged in from, or he can restore the file to a target virtual machine. So the mount is complete over here. Now it's a Windows machine, C:, this take a file 100m.dat. And like I said, there are two options for the user, and these options are controlled by the permissions the user has. So if you don't want to give this user permissions to download files on his machine, you would not grant that particular access to this user, and he would only see the restore option. So there's a lot of flexibility in what the user can do or not do. And in this demo today, I created sort of a more powerful user than probably a typical environment would have. So download would just we would stream this file from our storage server, and as you can see, the download is started. This would take a few minutes to complete, and we won't wait for that. Let's click on restore, and restore populates the virtual machine name, and you just need to give in credentials. You can select a file or file path, or put it in an alternate file path, and hit restore. And what's going to happen on the back end is we're going to use the VMware APIs to stream this file into the guest virtual machine. And another key point to note over here is, because we're leveraging the VMware APIs to do this restore, there is no need to install any NetBackup client software on the guest virtual machine. It's completely agentless, and that kind of reduces a lot of maintenance burden that you would have with vendors that require a client to be installed on the virtual machine for recovery. So those were the recovery scenarios. We can also take a look at, let's see, I wanted to show you just briefly what a traditional recovery would look like. So again, let's go back to the same virtual machine. Recovery points, let's just take, I don't know, Feb 10th, and let's see what an alternate location recovery looks like. So the alternate location recovery allows you to change a lot of parameters. You can change the display name. You can change which ESX server it should go to. So when I hit on change, we're presented with a view of the entire vCenter topology, and you can select, you can drill down and select any host that's of interest. So I'll pick this one. Hit select. I can change the resource pool of vApps. With this, and you can also change the data store or cluster this should go to. Let's take this one. There's a lot of space in this. You can also select, you can control how the recovery should work, in the sense, if this virtual machine already exists at this location, whether you want to overwrite it or not. So to be safe, we'll keep it off. We want to power on the virtual machine after the recovery, and there are advanced settings such as how you want to control the BIOS UUID generation, if you want to remove the backing devices or the networking configuration, etc. You can select the formatting of the virtual disks, and the summary looks good to me. I can hit restore, and now we have triggered a restore. This persona can look at the restore activity to view the progress of this restore. This one is an older one. No, not really. This is from now. Yeah, but that's essentially kind of the full range of operations that you could do as a VMware administrator, which is discover your assets, see which ones are protected, not protected, make decisions into how you want to protect them, leverage intelligent groups to do dynamic protection of virtual machines, and recover and leverage the advanced recovery options such as instant access or the agentless file recovery. That was what I had for today's demo. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Shamli and take a look if there were any questions that came over. I'd be happy to answer them. So Shamli, I'm going to transfer to you. Shamli, do you get control? Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, thank you. So we are going to now answer questions that have come in through the question bar. If you have any questions, please feel free to add them in. The first question is, do you currently support Red Hat virtualization as well in addition to VMware?
Yeah, so we are introducing Red Hat. Yeah, sure. So we are introducing support for Red Hat KVM in our next release, which is scheduled for Q2 of calendar year 2019. And that's going to be available through the new web-based interface. And the look and feel would be exactly or very similar to what we showed you for VMware.
Next question, for intelligent group for future VMs, do we need to poll or is it auto-discovered?
Yeah, so once you've created an intelligent group with whatever filter that you have in mind, NetBackup automatically discovers your assets every 8 hours, which is configurable. So if you wanted to auto-discover assets at a more frequent interval, you could change that. Or if the 8 hours is fine, you could stick with that as well. And so now what that provides you is whenever you preview a intelligent group, you would see the view based on the most recent discovery that had run. But when we actually trigger a backup, we do a discovery at runtime during that backup as well. So what I was trying to say over here is, if you're discovering every 8 hours and you discover at 12 p.m. and your group is telling you have 10 virtual machines that match that criteria, and at 1 o'clock, 10 more machines that get created with the same criteria, when your backup runs at, let's say, 2 p.m., it's going to get all of those machines for backup.
Another follow-up question from the same user. So for schedule, can we add an exception list for the dates to be excluded, for dates to not be backed up, or do we only have a frequency-based schedule?
So we also support a calendar-based schedule, and what in today's demo, we didn't see the calendar-based schedule in the protection plans. That's available through our policy interface in NetBackup, and we're bringing over the calendar-based scheduling into the web UI as well, which would give you a rich set of functionality in terms of scheduling and also setting exclude dates.
Next question is for intelligent groups are kind of seems similar to the earlier question, maybe are exclusions or conflict/priority obvious? I did not get a good look at the UI for those aspects.
Yes, there is a facility to do excludes, and you can. I showed you a filter criteria that had contains, but we also have not equal to or just simply not values. So you can create groups by combining filters that are a mix of includes as well as excludes. So you can get as granular as you'd like. And as right now we support up to 12 keywords by which you can create intelligent VM groups in the web interface. And we're looking at increasing that scope even further.
And two more questions, Mrinal. So is Microsoft Windows NFS supported for instant recovery?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't fully understand this question. If you could paraphrase it again, Dan, I might be able to take a better stab at it.
And with instant recovery, the VMs are mounted as NFS data stores. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, your understanding is correct. So what we do, I'll just reiterate, we create a snapshot on the NetBackup storage server system, and we mount that snapshot using our proprietary Veritas provisioning file system, and export this VPFS share as an NFS share into vCenter or the ESX server, and that's how we mount the virtual machine from that NFS share.
So that's all the questions at this time. Dan, if you'd like to paraphrase your question, we can always reach out to you via email and answer your question. If there aren't any more questions, I'll hand it back to Annie.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Shamali and Mrinal, for taking the time to speak to us today. One attendee from today's webcast will win a $100 Amazon gift card, and Veritas will email the winner directly following today's webcast. As a reminder, you will receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast. And to find out more about the VMUG webcast program, you can visit vmug.com/learn. And please make sure to complete the short online evaluation that will pop up as you exit the webcast, and let us know how you thought today's session went. And from all of us here at VMUG, thank you and have a great rest of your day.